Hey there, my name is Alex and I'm 28 years old. I used to work as a live-in nurse about 8 months ago. This is a story about how an old man that I used to nurse changed my entire life. It was as if I was in a movie that had the most unexpected plot twist. I used to be a live-in nurse for an old man named Frank. Frank was super kind, had a great sense of humor, and laughed a lot. I liked spending time with him. He had a son, Raymond, and a daughter-in-law, Carrie. I used to work in a hospital where Frank was admitted 3 years ago, due to complications with low blood pressure. I took care of him and we became friends. Mr. Raymond made me an offer to work as a live-in nurse for Frank and told me that he would pay me well. I needed the money, so I agreed. Frank was a wealthy man. He had built many businesses, and now his son was looking after all of it. Carrie was also running a nail art studio, so she used to go to work during the daytime as well. Frank was a sweet guy. He loved cracking jokes and being around people. I still remember the first time I met him. He was 76 at that time. Even though he was lying in the hospital bed, he looked so full of life. "So you're the unfortunate lad that's going to take care of me." "Unfortunate?" "Yeah, I sing really bad, and I have a habit of singing my heart out, you know." "Oh, I'm Alex. I'll be nursing you." "It's good to meet you, Mr. Frank." "Mr. Frank? How old do you think I am? 45? Just call me Frank." "All right, Frank. You seem to be a lively guy." "Well, I just celebrated my 21st birthday. I am the legal drinking age now. Of course I'm excited." "Well, I'm happy for you. All right, how do you feel?" "Like I'm lying down in a hospital bed." "All right, my bad. Did you eat something? Your blood pressure is too low. If you feel hungry, just let me know." "I am actually hungry. Can you get me something to eat, Alex? Preferably a pizza with no tomatoes, please." "I don't know about the pizza, but we do have some delicious food here in the hospital." "Yeah, right. Delicious." I can tell by the look on your face that you like the food here. Also, I want you to eat small meals every now and then to keep your blood pressure stable. I'll bring you the food. You just need to cooperate and eat it. "All right. I'll try not to complain about the food, even though I should." "I know it tastes bad, but it's healthy. You can eat whatever you want once you're okay. Till then, you'll have to make do with the hospital food only." "Sounds amazing." You never leave an opportunity to be sarcastic, do you? "No one ever should." "All right. I'll go get some food." "Don't worry. Take your time. It's not like I can go anywhere." I went to get him some food and I came back. We talked for a while and then I went home. It was the end of my shift. The next day I met him again and he was happy to see me. We played some board games. I helped him with some routine exercises and we used to talk about random things. He used to tell me how he was from a small town and his father had a farm. He enjoyed talking to me. I guess he only needed someone to listen to him. He used to ask me to tell him more about myself and I used to tell him. We became friends. Frank was admitted for 3 days, and he was sent home after that. On the 3rd day before going home, Frank gave me a hug and told me that he was grateful to me for taking care of him. I told him that I too enjoyed his company. And then Frank went home. A week later, I got a call from Mr. Raymond. "Hello, is this Alex?" "Yeah, who's asking?" "Hey, I'm Raymond. Frank is my father. You were nursing him in the hospital last week, remember?" "Oh yeah, I remember." "Good. So how can I help you? Is everything all right? Is Mr. Frank all right?" "Yes, everything is fine. I called you because we need you." "Need me? I don't understand." "So Dad needs someone who can take care of him when we're not home. He told me about you. He also told me how good you were at your job, and he insisted that we ask you to be a live-in nurse and take care of him." I don't know about that. I've already talked to the hospital and they're okay with it. I'll pay you twice your paycheck. And we have a separate room for you. We have maids that'll cook food for you. You will have everything. I'll have to talk with the hospital people about this again. We already have a lot of patients here. I've had a word with the hospital people, and they are okay with it. You can easily come here and be a live-in nurse for my dad. The guys at the hospital told me that they can manage your patients. We need you, Alex." "All right then. I guess I can be a live-in nurse for Mr. Frank." "Great. Pack your stuff and be ready tomorrow morning. I'll send a car for you." "All right, Mr. Raymond." I packed my stuff and moved to Mr. Raymond's house. The first time I saw Mr. Raymond's house, my jaw dropped. It was huge, and they also had their own swimming pool. There was a big lawn in front of my house, and they had so many cars. Some of them looked very expensive. I've had a pretty rough childhood. My father used to work in a factory, and my mother was a teacher at a small school. We were not very financially strong, and we struggled a lot because of that. We even had to sell our house because we had no money to buy groceries and pay bills. After we sold the house, we rented a cheap apartment full of problems. There was a water shortage, electricity cuts, and everything. My parents still live in that apartment, but I had to leave it for my work. The hospital was pretty far from home, so I had to move out. So looking at all of this luxury in front of my eyes was a bit overwhelming. I went inside and met Frank. Frank was extremely happy to see me. Everyone was happy to see me and greeted me so well. Carrie thanked me for doing this, and I told her that it was my job. It seemed like such a close-knit, sweet family. But things are only sometimes what they seem to be. A couple of weeks went by fine. There were no issues, but then I started noticing Mr. Raymond and Carrie hardly ever came upstairs to Frank's room to meet him. It was as if they were trying to avoid Frank on purpose. They didn't meet him for weeks. They used to send his meals upstairs to his room and hardly visited his room to check up on him. Frank used to stay in his room most of the time. We used to go out on the lawn for short walks and for routine exercises during the daytime when Mr. Raymond and Carrie were not home. It started to seem as if they didn't really care about Frank. I asked Frank about this, and his face turned sorrowful. He told me that it is how it has always been. When was the last time you met Mr. Raymond and Carrie? I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago? Could be 4. What? You all live in the same house. How can you not meet each other? It's just how it's always been. They work all day and come home at night. They tell me not to come downstairs and the maids bring meals to my room. Raymond comes to me only when there's something business-related he needs to ask. Carrie doesn't come at all. Only with Raymond sometime. Frank, I'm really sorry to hear about all of this. No, it's okay. Ever since you came here, things have been better. I used to stay in my room alone, all the time. And now that you're here, I feel like there's a friend by my side. The last nurse we had quit his job after he had a fight with Carrie about something. They just told me he left. I'm glad that I'm your friend. I like spending time with you. Can I let you in on a secret? Go ahead, I love secrets. I was a loner myself when I was in school, or even in the training center. I've never had friends. I have trouble making friends. I guess we're not that different, Frank. You're my only good friend. Ha! I guess we're just two people in the same boat in the middle of the sea who didn't know how to swim. You could say that. You being here has changed a lot of things. Raymond and Carrie used to fight all the time, but now that you're here, they don't fight as much. They used to yell at me as well when they were angry. They don't do it in front of you. I'm really sorry to hear that, Frank. It's alright. I'm used to all of this. It doesn't really affect me anymore. Anyway, let's forget about this. Do you want to play chess? You bet. Do you feel like losing again? Says the man who lost 3 times in a row. It happened once, and it was your lucky day that day. Talent trumps luck, kid. We started playing chess and he won. He was great at playing board games. He loved being around people and playing board games, and now I knew why. He was isolated by Mr. Raymond and Carrie. He used to spend all of his day alone. I used to learn how to play different board games in my free time so I could play with Frank. I guess that's why he seemed so lively in the hospital with so many people around him. I felt bad for Frank. I decided to go up to Mr. Raymond and talk to him about it. It would have been better for Frank's health and recovery if his family supported him emotionally. After all, a man needs his family the most when he is sick. I went up to Mr. Raymond and suggested to him that he should meet his father more often. The moment I said this to Mr. Raymond, he snapped. Mr. Raymond, I need to talk to you about something. It's about your father. What is it, Alex? It's been a while since you've met your dad. He doesn't even remember the last time he met you. I think you should meet him more often. It'll be good for him. This is none of your business, kid. Just do your work and don't stick your nose in other people's businesses. I am a very busy man and my father understands that. But Mr. Raymond, I talked to your father about this and he's really sad that you don't come and meet him. He needs his son. I'm not telling you to meet him every day, but meeting him twice or thrice a week is the least you can do. We all live in the same house. So you're going to teach me how to be a good son? Who do you think you are? I am sorry, Mr. Raymond, if you felt like that. I am definitely not trying to teach you how to be a good son. All I'm saying is that your father is sick, and he would be really happy to see his son and his daughter-in-law checking up on him. And I was just letting you know that your father needs you. You should meet him often. Listen to me, Alex. You're a nice kid, so I'm telling you nicely. You only do as you're told. Nothing more than that. You're only here because my father likes you. I wouldn't think twice before firing you, so stay in your lane and do your work. I don't ever want to be bothered about something like this ever again, you understand? All right, Mr. Raymond, I understand. I'm sorry for bothering you. Mr. Raymond seemed to be offended when I asked him about this, or maybe it was the guilt that was making him act this way. After all, he was guilty of neglecting his father and he knew it. I didn't tell Frank about all of this. I knew he would feel bad, so I kept it to myself. A couple of weeks went by, everything stayed the same. Frank used to spend most of his time with me. I used to take care of his medicines, his exercise, and everything. One day, I was in the kitchen making coffee for Frank. That's when I heard Carrie shouting. I went to the living room and there I saw Carrie yelling at Frank and ended up breaking a vase kept on the table right beside the staircase. Frank's left hand was bleeding. Frank had already gotten up when I got there, but his hands were bleeding. I brought the first aid kit and started treating Frank, but Carrie was going on and on about the broken vase. Frank, are you out of your mind? Why were you trying to come downstairs when we told you to stay upstairs? I just wanted to come down and sit with everyone else. Why would you want to do that? And you broke my favorite vase. Raymond and I brought this from Rome when we went on our honeymoon. It was quite special for us and you broke it. Mrs. Carey, his hands are bleeding. What? Do you think I'm blind? I can see that. You take care of it. That's why we've hired you. I'm just saying that we should treat him first, and then you can calmly talk to him about all of this. Oh, don't tell me what to do. You do your job. You're just a nurse, so don't try to act smart with me. Do you want me to fire you? No, Mrs. Carey, I apologize. As you should, and where were you? We hired you to take care of him, not roam around in the house. I was just making coffee for Mr. Frank. It's not his fault. I told him to make coffee for me, and I just wanted to come down all on my own. You should have called for Alex if you wanted to come down. Why do you have to be like this, Frank? Don't we do enough for you? Why do you always have to be a headache for us? I don't understand. I'm sorry, Carrie. I'll tell Raymond to get you the same vase from Rome. You don't understand at all. I don't care about the vase. It was a memoir from our honeymoon, and now you've broken it. I was just trying to come down and I tripped and fell. I held onto the table, but it fell with me, and the vase broke. I am really sorry about it. Let it go now. What's done is done. Alex, stitch him up or whatever you need to do to take him back to his room. I will. And then Carrie went back to her room. I was shocked to see that she didn't even ask once if Frank was okay. She was just mad at him for knocking over the vase and breaking it. I mean, Frank is the father-in-law, yet she was not concerned about him. All she could see was that Frank knocked the vase down and broke it. I covered Frank's hand with some bandages, gave him some water, and I took him back to his room. As soon as Frank entered the room, he broke down. He was crying like a kid. To see a man like Frank cry almost made me cry. The first time I met Frank, I had no idea he was going through so much. He seemed pretty happy, but now I could see he was living in hell. His son didn't care about him, and his daughter-in-law hated him. But how could they treat Frank like this? Frank has been nothing but kind to everyone. He needed his family, and they just didn't care about him. I calmed him down and gave him chocolates that I sneaked in my pocket from the kitchen for Frank. He looked at the chocolate and smiled. He was just like a kid. It felt as if he was a kid whose mother had yelled at him and then gave him a chocolate to make him stop crying. It was comforting yet sad to see Frank eat chocolates while trying to hold back his tears. I told him that it wasn't his fault, but he kept on insisting that he made a mistake. Hey, Frank, it's not your fault. I am so stupid. Why did I even think that I could come down all on my own? It's okay, Frank. It's nothing you should be sorry about. Raymond told me not to come downstairs, but I don't know what got into my head, and I tried to come down, knocking the vase down in the process. And Carrie yelled at you too because of me. I'm sorry about it, Alex. Hey, Frank, don't be like that. It's nothing. Trust me. I'm happy that you try to do things on your own, but you should have called me before trying something like that. It could be dangerous. Did you fall down the stairs? No, I was at the last stair and I tripped. You should be glad that you were at the last step. It could have been very dangerous if you fell from the top. I'm sure I wouldn't have died. Carrie should have made an extra floor that kept me there. If I would have fallen from an extra floor, I guess I would have done the job. Poor planning by Carrie. You and your sarcastic remarks, Frank. By the way, are you hurt? I'm fine, it's just my hand. I guess the shrapnel from the broken vase must have cut my hand. I've covered the wound with cotton and bandages. The bleeding has stopped. I'll put some medicine on it. The cut isn't too wide or deep. You're lucky you wouldn't need stitches. After seeing Carrie roar at me like an angry lion, do you think I'm scared of stitches? Well, you should be. It hurts really bad. Maybe next time. How can you make jokes when your daughter-in-law just yelled at you? I guess these jokes are the only thing that keeps me warm in this cold family. I'm sorry for you, Frank. That evening, Mr. Raymond came back from work and told me to go home and take the day off tomorrow. I told him that I'd rather stay here and take care of Frank, but he insisted that I went home. I agreed. I packed some of my stuff, enough for a day, and went back to my old apartment. The next day, I went to meet my parents. All the things that I saw at Mr. Raymond's house made me realize that it has been a while since I met my parents. I went to their home and they were happy to see me. I spent the night there. We had beers. My mom made my favorite food, and we played board games. It was so nice to be with my family again. Spending this little time with my parents made me wonder how Mr. Raymond and Carrie treat Frank so harshly. I told my parents about how Mr. Raymond and his wife treated Frank, and they strongly condemned it. I told them how sweet and lively Frank was. They felt bad for him and told me to take good care of him. The next day, I went to my apartment to get my stuff, and then I went to Mr. Raymond's. I got inside the house and went to Frank's room to check up on him, but he wasn't there. I came downstairs and saw Mr. Raymond. I asked him about Frank, and what he said next left me stunned. Mr. Raymond, I'm back. I went to Mr. Frank's room to check up on him, but he wasn't there. Do you know where he is? Oh, Alex, I forgot to tell you. We won't be needing your services anymore. Thank you for everything you did and for taking care of my father. I'll clear your payment and you can pack your stuff and leave by tomorrow. What? What about Mr. Frank? Where is he? I've put the oldie in a nursing home. I hope he breathes his last breath soon. What? What are you talking about? After that incident that happened the day before yesterday, me and Carrie decided that Dad should not stay here, so we sent him to a nursing home. But Mr. Raymond, he needs to be with his family. Dad will be fine, and it'll be better for him to stay there in the nursing home. Better for him or better for you? Excuse me. Mr. Raymond, I beg you, please, bring him back home. I promise I'll take care of him and nothing like that incident will ever happen again. You have my word. Too late now, Alex. I sent him yesterday, and he must have already settled with the nurses there. You know how that oldie is. He can get along with anyone. That is the reason why you told me to take a day off yesterday, so you can send Mr. Frank to the nursing home? Hey, kid, listen. You're getting ahead of yourself. Don't forget that you're just a nurse, and you're standing in my house. I'll pay you for your services till today, and then you can get out of my house. Now go and pack your stuff. All right, Mr. Raymond. One last thing. Could you tell me the name and address of the nursing home? I want to meet him for the last time and say goodbye to him. Mr. Raymond pulled out his phone and texted me the name and the address of the nursing home. I went to my room, packed my stuff as quickly as I could, and left. I didn't even care about the money at that point. I just wanted to meet Frank and check up on him. I knew for a fact that he would be very sad after all of this. I took a cab to the nursing home where Frank was. It was 11 to 12 miles away. It took approximately 24 minutes to reach. Mr. Raymond sent Frank pretty far away. I reached the nursing home and I went inside. I told him that I was Frank's nurse and I wanted to check up on him. They checked my ID and called Mr. Raymond. Mr. Raymond told them to let me meet Frank. They took me to Frank's room and there he was, sitting on a chair, staring out of the window. I went up to him and gently touched his shoulder. He was startled. He turned around and looked at me. The moment he saw me, his eyes were filled with tears. He hugged me and cried. I cried a little, but then I pulled myself together somehow. I didn't want Frank to see me cry. I was so happy to see him. I took a chair and sat with him. "It's so good to see you, Frank. How are you doing?" "You know, just hanging in there." "I thought I'd never see you, Alex." "How could I let that happen? You're my best friend. I wouldn't abandon my best friend. My son and his wife left me here. I thought they would never let you know where they sent me." "I thought so too. I almost snapped at them for sending you away, but then I calmed myself. I knew they were never going to let me know about you, so I politely asked them where they sent you, and they told me." "Well played, kid." "Well, all that bluffing you used to do while playing board games taught me a lesson or two." "I'll still beat you at any game you want." "Ha, I'm sure you will, Frank. How do you feel?" "Not very good. I feel like all of this has really affected me. I don't feel like eating anything or doing anything. I feel weak all the time, and I couldn't sleep yesterday. I don't feel good here. I'll try talking to Mr. Raymond about this. Maybe he'll bring you back home." "Please don't. I know you care about me, but I'd rather stay here than go back to my son and his wife." "But Frank, you're a good kid, Alex. You always treated me kindly. You were there when my son abandoned me, and you're still here. I'm glad that I met you." "Don't be like that, Frank. I always enjoyed your company. You're so fun to be around." "You've been nothing but kind and respectful to me. For everything you did for me, I'll change your life for good." "What? I don't understand." "You don't have to right now. Do you want to play a game of Scrabble or maybe Candyland with me?" "Of course I do. I still have to redeem myself after so many epic losses." "I don't think that'll ever happen." "Let's see, old man." We played a couple of board games, and strangely, I won each of them. I used to visit Frank once every week for a couple of months, and until he passed away. His health was deteriorating with time, and he eventually gave up. The nurses told me that he went away peacefully. I went to Mr. Raymond's home for the funeral. That's when a man came up to me and took me aside to talk to me. He told me that he was Frank's lawyer, and Frank had written in his will to give all of his inheritance to me, which included a couple of businesses, houses, and other properties. I was shocked to hear that. The man then gave me a letter telling me that Frank had written it for me and told him to give it to me after he passed away. I opened the letter and it said, "Dear Alex, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer here. I'm grateful to you for being so kind and respectful to me. Thank you for taking care of me when my son didn't want to. I can't thank you enough. I'm going away with the few good last memories I have because of you. As a gesture of gratitude for everything you've done, I am naming you to have all of my inheritance. My son doesn't deserve it at all. Everything is yours now, Alex. Use all of it to make a good life for you and your parents. You deserve it. And as for me, I am in a better place now, but I'll always remember you. Always keep me in your heart, best friend. And just so you know, I let you win at every game last time we played. I might be 6 feet under, but I'll always be the lively old man with his ready-to-go sarcasm you met at the hospital for the first time. Take care of yourself, kid. With love, Frank." I finished reading the letter and I broke down. I cried hard. Meanwhile, the lawyer went to Mr. Raymond and Carrie and told them everything about the inheritance. They came dashing in and tried to convince me to return all of it back to them, but I denied it. I told them that this is what you get for treating your father badly. And to make it worse for you, I am suing you and your wife for negligence towards Frank. I'll make sure you pay for all the wrongs you did to Frank. I sued them and they were found guilty. They had to pay a hefty fine. They lost their house and their businesses, and they were penalized for the negligence that led to Frank's death. It has been 8 months now since Frank passed away. I still remember him every day. He was my best friend. I moved to Frank's house along with my parents. Frank's lawyer helped me win the case against Mr. Raymond. Mr. Raymond and his wife moved out of the house, and because of the penalty, they went broke. The last I heard of them, they were living in a cheap apartment, and Mr. Raymond was working double shifts at a petrol station. He went from riches to rags. Serves him right. Frank's ex-personal assistant taught me everything about his businesses, and now I'm acting as a board member. It all feels so surreal to me. I never thought an old man that I met in the hospital would change my life this way. Frank used to tell me during his last days, that I was a blessing that the Lord sent for him, but I realize now that it was always the other way around. Frank was the real blessing that came into my life and changed it for good, and I'll always be grateful to Frank for all of this.